So, for a while now, I've had this theory on how Anakin is still the Chosen One and he did bring balance to the Force. So, I've decided today is the day that I'm going to share it. It involves many different characters, so let's go. So, for starters, before I get into the theory, let's look at some of the canon factual things. Right here it says how Anakin is the Chosen One. This is from Wikipedia, so this is a canon source, but if you want to hear it from Anakin Skywalker himself, here is what he says.
Bring back the balance, Rey, as I did.
Bring back the balance as I did. So that means Anakin did bring balance to the Force, therefore fulfilling the prophecy of the Chosen One. So Anakin was and always will be the Chosen One that brought balance to the Force by temporarily killing Palpatine to save Luke. Now, what a lot of people get confused by or don't like is that the balance was not permanent, but it was never stated that it would be permanent balance in the Force. Obviously, Palpatine returned in Episode 9, therefore he wasn't actually killed by Anakin, but that did not mean anything. Because Vader tried to save Luke, not kill Palpatine. Obviously, he was trying to kill Palpatine, but that happened because he was trying to save Luke. And like I said, balance was actually brought to the Force. Like, that's just a fact. But I want to show you this clip of Snoke talking to Rey. This is where my theory comes from.
Darkness rises and light to meet it. I warned my young apprentice that as he grew stronger, his equal in the light would rise.
So, he warned Kylo that as Kylo grew stronger in the dark side, his equal in the light would grow to match him. So, I think that now that Anakin had initially brought balance to the Force, whenever the Force becomes unbalanced with someone like Snoke or Palpatine, because Palpatine did somewhat control Snoke and Kylo, the Force will always bring out its counter to it to fulfill balance again. I don't know if that made sense, but what I'm trying to say is, now that Anakin had initially fulfilled the prophecy and brought balance to the Force, although it wasn't permanent, when the Force becomes unbalanced again, in whatever way that is, the Force will respond by bringing its counter to that to provide balance again. This in the sequel trilogy being Rey, as she turned Kylo from the dark side back to the light and killed Palpatine. So I hope that is actually a good theory and you can sit with that, because to me, it makes a lot of sense. It doesn't really make sense that there's just one person that brings balance to the Force forever, and because what they've done has happened, no one in the galaxy is ever going to use the dark side ever again. I don't think that makes sense personally, because it seems very unrealistic considering what the dark side actually is. There's a lot of selfish, greedy people out there in the galaxy, and all you need is one of them to be Force sensitive and have a little bit of knowledge on the Sith, and boom, you have a dark side user. So I think it makes complete sense that once balance was fulfilled, it can be unbalanced again, but it will always lead to balance again. And I don't think that this would have been the case until Anakin had been born, because obviously the Sith were in the background before the prequel trilogy, so they always existed, therefore the Force wasn't balanced, and also certain Jedi were being selfish with the Force, meaning that it wasn't in complete balance. And once Anakin obviously chucked Palpatine off chucked him down the hole on the Death Star basically, there was no Sith other than Palpatine in the background, but obviously wasn't really doing anything to unbalance the Force up until Snoke was made, which is where Rey came into action, and obviously the Jedi that were being selfish were wiped out in Order 66, and the Jedi that remained, like Luke, between 6 and 7, he wasn't exactly a key element. He was very selfless and kept the balance in the Force for a while that Anakin provided. So, let's assume that this theory that I've come up with is actually true, and now that Anakin fulfilled the prophecy, whenever the Force is unbalanced, it will always respond and eventually bring balance from someone like Rey that happened. Let's assume this is true. So, this means that in a post sequel era, any content we get from there could still be dark side users for Rey and her Jedi Order to have to face, which is definitely something that could be quite interesting. Her training Finn, maybe the Broom Kid from The Last Jedi, I don't know, whoever's out there that's force sensitive that she manages to recruit. There's still a potential for a new Sith Lord post the sequel trilogy. Maybe not as strong as the ones we see in the past because they don't actually have a master anymore, but it could still be very interesting. It would make sense if they were a little bit weaker in terms of force power, as they don't have like any teacher obviously, and it would be the same for Rey. She probably wouldn't be as powerful as like Yoda, say, because she doesn't have a living teacher. She has Luke and Leia as Force Ghosts, and she has all the Jedi texts. But yeah, I think if we're going to see any post-sequel content with a new Sith Lord, we're definitely going to need like a backstory or like a build-up to their actual power. Maybe they're quite weak in the first movie. We need to see them actually progress in the dark side rather than just come out of nowhere and be powerful, because they will have to be self-taught, which I think is actually something that would be really cool to see. A dark side user having to teach themselves, like Rey would have to be teaching herself. Like it would be perfect to see, because they're literally similar but also a contrast, because obviously Rey is light side and they would be dark side. If you're not quite on board with this yet, let me pitch you this idea. So, what if this dark side user had force psychometry like Rey, which would be cool to see because then they both share a power, and Cal Kestis, which is where you touch an object and you see its past. When this Sith Lord is going to old Sith temples and trying to teach themselves all the powers and stuff like that, they touch objects that people like Malak, Malgus, Revan, Nihilus from the Old Republic had touched, and we see flashbacks of that, eventually leading into Old Republic content. Maybe not necessarily canonizing the KOTOR games, but making some new Old Republic content. I think this would be a fantastic idea, because then it kind of like circles off Star Wars. That doesn't necessarily mean we can't go even further back from the Old Republic and even further on from just a little bit post the sequels, but it kind of creates a circle. If the very latest in the timeline piece of Star Wars goes back to the very earliest in the timeline piece of Star Wars, I think that would be great. And it would also be a way to kind of bring in some of the younger fans that do really like the KOTOR games, that hate the sequels. They might learn to appreciate the sequel era, as that is what's led to canonizing some of their favourite Sith Lords of the past. So yeah, that is my theory as a whole, and what that could mean in like the future of Star Wars. Obviously the theory was only a small part of this. I spoke about what that could mean for a little bit longer. But yeah, let me know what you thought of the theory. Let me know what you thought of like what it could mean for Star Wars and what I think could happen after the sequels, what I've just mentioned. Any other thoughts? Yeah, just be sure to comment them down below. Whilst you're down there, please do subscribe. We just hit 3.7k. I'm trying to get to 5k as soon as I can, because that is a huge milestone. So yeah, if you enjoyed, leave a like, and that is all. Thanks for watching. In a bit.